Pisha to datri 2011 شعريلي أسيريا تيفي بفروسيدي وموزة بناو
Syrian language, history, and culture. Even more so in the case of an area still with a scarce presence in the Spanish university, although we trust that the organization of this type of event will contribute to highlighting the value of these studies in the university panorama of our country. We feel especially honored that a congress of these characteristics is held in Salamanca. I underline the international character of the Congress, mentioning the varied origin of the participants. This supposes a wealth not only for the university, but also for our city. The diversity of themes that address various thematic aspects is also very important, from language to culture and history around Syria as a country. This thematic variety enriches the Congress since it amplifies its size. Also for me, it's an unknown area. I'm sure that the debates that will be generated in this context, and of course the quality of the speakers' communications, will allow us to enrich ourselves with this wealth of information and learn from a culture for which I have a deep respect, interest, and admiration. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed your stay in Salamanca.
Muchas gracias a la vicedecana de Relaciones Internacionales, señor Recano.
Señor Rector, welcome to the palace. I love to say that. And thank you for coming. Thank you to be ready to share with us your knowledge, to come here to study and learn. It's always a pleasure to see this special room full of people. The only problem we have, you see, is that this room most of the time is not available because of all the activities that are going on all the time. That's why we ask the professors and the students, please make reservations, book the aula magna, because we never know if it's going to be ready or not. That's a problem sometimes, but also is something we are very proud of, because it means that this house is full of activities, is full of energy, and that we are all the time doing things. But it's not only the amount of events that we have here, it's also the variety of events that we celebrate in this room. A week ago we had an international conference on detective fiction, crime fiction. Next week we are going to have another conference on lexicography. A few weeks ago we had another international conference in medieval and Renaissance literature. And now we are having an international conference on Assyrian language, history, and culture. So that's something that, again, we are very proud of. My only concern is that I have been checking your program, and I'm afraid you are not going to have much time to enjoy the city. Ephraim, I think that's a mistake. I understand that here you have come to work, but please have some time to enjoy Salamanca. If that becomes a problem with Ephraim, say so, and I will have a few words with him. So please enjoy Salamanca and enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Well, thank you, the Dean and the Vice Dean for International Relationships. I'm sure that Professor Ephraim Gillis will show you Salamanca He always finds time for studying and also for enjoying and cooking. Well, so he preserves the tradition. You know that 500 years ago here in Salamanca, Antonio Nebrija wrote the first Spanish grammar. Professor Efrangidis has the project to write the first modern Assyrian grammar. So he also needs time for his studies and research. And I'm sure that he's going to achieve his objective because he believes in his people, his tradition, and he would like that your sons and daughters will study the best culture, Assyrian culture. So thank you, Ephraim, for your initiative, for organizing this Congress, also for the Nineveh Academic Chair, and for sharing with us the tradition of the roots of civilization and culture. This university has the engagement with your culture, with your history, and always thanks to Ephraim for the work. So enjoy the Congress, enjoy also the conference, and enjoy Salamanca. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Rector Magnifico, dear Rector, dear Dean and Vice Dean of the Faculty of Philology, it's a huge pleasure for me. It's not just a question of sharing, the desk here. We are sharing more than just such specific occasions. We are fighting, we are struggling for the common values, which are academic freedom, values of integrity, inclusiveness, and so on. So this is why I'm very happy to have these three people here, because they are supporting all these values. And especially I'm proud to have them here because they believe also in what we are trying to do, what we try to foster in relation to the Assyrian language, to the Assyrian history and culture. Because it's not easy to find places where such initiatives, such, let's say, subjects are really appreciated because of the new technology. Today it's much more attractive to study engineering or scientific issues. And then the humanities are becoming gradually stronger because without this basis, this background, even the technology will not achieve the goals we are looking for. So I'm thankful to you, my rector, Ricardo. We are, since 2018, we are struggling for these common values at the university. And thank you for coming and supporting me. As you see, they love me. It's not just a question of coming and accomplishing what their commitment, but their words are signs of, for me, of big, not only friendship, but also conviction that what we are doing here, it will serve for the Assyrian nation. Thank you very much. Alone. So
we're going to let you work.
Well, after these few words, do you hear me well? Yeah? الشمود غالي بسيطة بس مقام هذا بجل ديالو من قد كل خامدي كبنوا أمرنا له طلعت بخبري بالشان الحيمة ويقرا ديا شينا وشتامة تيلوغن زيتوغن الدمية المصفوطة وحالو طرب تيلا إديو طاري دمو هو تراب ربطة لما هو متنده الدية مشريلا البلاخة خمدي الديلة أن القاية يلبانا دشانا تشعيتا وصبرايوتا ديلة أن القايتا من هذا السبب رابا رابصيخيون تيتوخن بصوب سلامانكا طالي لبايش دنيا أدتلن صورة من ديانة مشارق اللي البناية سبب بس كبها وخبنيانا أخطوصة ودمية أتحبه وحيادة وبالخونة كالشيرة إن نطلع من ديان لها ويلا كل من الأودخ لا ماطي الأودرخة أتشاغل بيرا من هذا السبب رابا بصيخي وبالطيبوتة دي طلوخن وتكلخا التالي ومشو تبلي منن اديو بولو ماذا قمايا تيولايا الكرسي بنيني نغلا قميتي لو تشميتا نترال بالشني لا الترال لا بس 1005 1040 مشني ادياخلتا آثرو بيشهلا ايتوتا لا بس بشمو اطرو بلشانا إلا هم تربيتا بسبب عما لا تربيتها لبعيش عما لا نشر. There is no chance having a society and a Syrian society without education. لا تربيتها ليبن ما طول خلمة إتلن اتجاهت باشخ عما وأمتا وإيتوتا وهيايوتا. إننا من ديان الصيري لما خدادي إيجا جاهت هم أطرباتي أغلي أفضل قمايا الشقالة أغلي للمقايدة من هذا السبب كيف يلبخ اليو إتلن ملباني رابي سكولاي جميري اللي كيف شيء لخداد رشلن بخبودا أد حدانايت لتلن شبرسا أد منطق خمد البكتي برام سعتانايت collectively even كتخمنا نشوتي بهم شاركوا بالخولن أي كبودهم من ديان رابي هذه لا قوبل طيبوت دين ببرشوت كلهم تيلوهم من أرخاته ومن أطر رحوقه بعدي إديو خخل ما يبقى بياشي الحيا يتوتا السبب إديو ياخرت آطر شريلة بخمن ديلة مغليلة برتن مرجانيتا بير بعدي لا تربيتا إن أخنا نسقيل مريمالا أمرجانيتا هاويلا برسا ادياخر شو شاطط عاطم شاري راي عالدا أنا هيت قبل المسيح أخواني مقرأ ميخائيل روبن إيف سوسن سمر انديوت نخيطة من البانيتي أو ترابرا والسمتيلو. So I'll go to shift to English because we have some people here. I'm sorry, but I have to read first in my language. This is what we have to learn today. Now, as I was saying in my mother tongue, for me it's a huge pleasure having you here among us, sharing those values that we are fighting for. And one of the main, let's say, value for me in this 21st century is the education. If the Assyrian people believe in their identity, they have to learn what their history is, who they are. And without education, there's no chance to achieve that part. So let's start from the main point, which is education, education, education. Training, training, training. Tarbita, 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 yulbana, yulbana, yulbana. So I'm very happy to have you here. For me, it's a huge gift, as I was saying, having people from different parts of the world. Unfortunately, this is our destiny. our territory is still occupied. But if we train ourselves, we will get at least a part of it back, and we will feel what we are struggling for. Being there is also being here. Being here is preparing ourselves for, let's say, preparing the ground to restart again. Assyrians are used to start and restart again and again, but we will never give up. And this is what I do with the limits I have. I'm convinced that without a language, and now I'm going to shift to, let's say, I will make just a short presentation of the topic I have chosen. Without the language, there's no chance to feel, to see, to live the reality of your own. If you don't manage your language, you can forget it. At the end, you'll depend on what the others tell about you. So let's focus on that part. This is why in the last 25 years, in a silent way, we have been working for at least to start putting or establishing the first cornerstone in what we are able to, the language. In our case, at the University of Salamanca, Faculty of Philology, we have, I'll tell you a bit about the Nineveh Chair, how it came to the existence and why. It's not just a question of that Professor Ephraim or the group who has been behind all these activities. Just they dreamed of something that doesn't have a real meaning, but it's always, every step that we have taken has been well studied, well prepared in order to provide the Assyrian community with at least a small basis where we can develop our language, our history and culture. So after at least 22 years, we started with a degree, which is called Hebrew and Aramaic Studies. It's here. Then we are involved in the doctoral programs. We are now preparing also a master, so we will have the whole curriculum for any Assyrian female or male that aims and wants to study their language at an academic level. And the last step was the Nineveh Academic Chair that aims to focus on three main fields, or three main activities. Research, first, teaching, and dissemination, what we are doing now. But especially, one of the purposes of the Nineveh Chair is to train for the next 10, 15 years, if we have the means in all senses, to train at least an average of 30, 60. My dream is to train 100 Assyrian ladies and gentlemen to, then to be sent to wherever there is an Assyrian community where their kids have to learn the language, where there is a university, to start to create the Nineveh Chair there as well. This is why I propose as topic of this let's say, session, the innovation process of the modern Assyrian language. I'm not going to enter in details because of the limit of the time, but I wanted to share with you why is innovation an important issue for a language, not only Assyrian, for any other language that aims to survive, aims to develop, aims to enhance its different aspects as a modern language, as a live language. Don't forget that each time we say we are Assyrians, at least 95% of the modern society, they think that we are talking about Ashurbanipal and until Sargon the Great. But we have to change such a mentality. We have to start working on how we should try to, to fight against this ignorance. This is only in relation to the modern society, but at the same time also, and now I'm entering the topic, we should not focus only on what a foreigner thinks about the Assyrian legacy, but even inside. If I'm honest to you, and this is a confession I'm doing, each time I hear that I am Assyrian, and then I try to ask him, then explain to me what you mean by being Assyrian. But the last 2,000 years of history led us always to say that we are Christians. This is why we speak also the language of Jesus, Aramaic, and so on. We have also to improve our knowledge among the different Assyrian communities. If we don't achieve that part, we will never get the goal we are fighting for. Because we Assyrians don't still know who we really are, how huge our history is, how splendid our language is, because now I'm telling you, most of you, we must be polite. I mean, English language is a, let's say, international communication medium. But so far I'm with my people, I prefer to talk in my mother tongue. But anyway, we should not only blame, we should also focus on what we can do in order to improve such, let's say, issues that are urgently needed. And let me, in order to save time, I have just prepared a bit of content in relation to the innovation process. So the Nineveh Chair, I just talked about it in a very harsh way, has different points that must be taken in account. So far we want to achieve our goal to disseminate our language, history and culture in and between the walls of the academic areas. This is why we have to learn how to promote and how to develop the Assyrian language in the way that the language should be learned as it deserves. Many of us mean we manage the language, but in reality we know just a little bit about it. And this is not a critic, but this is the reality we are facing with. On the other hand, in order to know, the language serves to get through the history, to get through the huge amount of literary production we have. If I just mention, let's say, the late period, which starts from the 2nd, 3rd century until the end of the 14th. The last work that has been officially written in our language, in the classical called Syriac, is of 1394. Now the question, how did it come that we shifted from our language to a foreign language? In this case, was the Arabic. And now, but the history, is a question of circulating. Why not restart? No, Allah. Anita, why should we not restart again to republish writing in our own language? But in order to write in your own language, you have to learn it. Robbie knows what I mean. So these are going to be, let's say, the one of several goals of the Nineveh Chair. And for such purpose, we need also activities. As I told you, our dream should be at least to train from now to 2034 at least an average of 100 Assyrian talent to be sent as ambassadors of their own culture, language and history. If we don't do that, we will fail. And for that we are trying to have scholarships for those talents that will be trained in language, history and literature. We have excellent doctors in medicine, we have excellent engineers, architects, businessmen at top level. But we miss a critical mass in that sense. If we are intelligent, and I'm sure that we are, we will have to focus on this important part that will help us to clarify those aspects that are the reason of many discussions, internal discussions. We are called by different names, Chaldeans, even historians, Arameans, and this and that. We have been missing. I'll talk about this point, which is important, because we have been depending on our church leaders, spiritual leaders until yesterday. And now it's time to emancipate a bit, without criticizing any of our church leaders that have done huge work. But now, or we take our destiny in our hands, or we will fail, because most part of the Syrian community members are abroad, are in diaspora, are in Galuta. So, as scholarships, but also we do have, of course, we have to cultivate Assyrian sciences. And there is no chance without research groups, Sayat and Budaq. We have still about an average of 25 Assyrian high scholars that are ready to work. Unfortunately, due to the COVID, many of them haven't been able to come. They will also give us their conferences online. And this is why I'm telling about hope, because everybody wants to participate. And this is probably a historical starting point, where we all together can achieve at least the first step, the cornerstone, putting it and then building on it. We will have, well, at the same time, the Nineveh Academic Chair will focus also on teaching the language online. We have now platforms. The structure of the courses is ready to be launched, but we have to work on the platform that must be done in a professional way. And there we will put our efforts together to achieve that part also. We will have 3 research groups, many teachers at different levels, I'll tell about it, where the Nineveh Chair will, let's say, be the guarantor of such activities. So a state university will try to foster such initiatives in a, let's say, professional way. Now, I'm going to shift. It was just to tell you that we have also an association of the Nineveh Academic Chair in order to ensure that those people who will be involved in the development of the activities of the research groups that are not just doing their work because they love their people, but they will be also paid like any other professional. So this is why I started to tell you a bit about what the Nineveh Chair aims to for the next at least 10, 15 years. And now, as I told you, I've mixed a bit because I'm also touched, having talked to my people, it's not easy. because it's not an easy issue to talk to your own. We have also, I have good friends who are here, and I consider them even part of the Assyrian development process. Pedro, thank you. So I have just outlined some points where I believe that we have to focus on, and we have to try to show to the different communities, Assyrian communities around the world, what is needed and what's not functional. An appropriate language policy. If we don't have a policy, forget it. So let's be focused. The first step for the effective Assyrian language development strategy is to start with a language policy that has to raise awareness among the direct and most important actors in this first phase. These are the parents and the other family members who must commit themselves to the Assyrian cause in order to become aware of the defense, development, and implementation of the Assyrian language in communities both in diaspora and in Assyria. This requires a belief in one's own existence as a people and a nation with its own territory, cultural, linguistic, and national wealth that is not well explained either to foreigners or to members of the universal Assyrian communities. The historical situation has not allowed us an opportunity to develop as people and as nation in all those aspects that would help the Assyrians to understand themselves as unitary people and not divided exclusively according to their ecclesiastic ramifications that have been proposed as an alternative to create nations that still reflect the traditional vision that millet system had proposed during the Ottoman rule or empire. According to the latter, the millet system, the multiple tribal religious groups or nations could enjoy a certain autonomy within the community as long as they declared their submission to the central system and paid the annual tributes to the Supreme Gate. In reality, there was a kind of independence, but they still lacked the sense of nation as we understand it now. According to these groups, or Assyrian groups, which are increasingly becoming part of the process of collective disintegration, need to have a process of unification. If this Surayt, Suroye, Suryoye do not converge in an integrative strategy, they are in danger of a gradually disappearing process. Unity is strength, and we must learn to work and move beyond the particular interests of any group, without entering into the controversy about the separation of Assyrian people into different subgroups that are becoming or have become proposed new nations. It's worth remembering that this policy only witnessed us as a personal to the United Nations, to the governments that are the decision makers and so on. That is why I believe it's absolutely necessary and indispensable to start organizing things from within what we need as a nation. This requires the information of a group of specialists who have to act at all levels To begin, it's essential to have a group of experts in language, history, and culture, literature, to produce official materials that represent the Assyrian people as a whole. We don't have our own vision given to the rest of the world. We depend on the others. We have to ask for Cambridge, Oxford, Salamanca, Paris, the permission for a definition, who we are, where we come from, how our language is based, which is good, we have worked on. But where is the Assyrian mission upon their own legacy? This is what we have to work on. The Nineveh Chair was created to serve as a guide or a channel for the development and the promotion of this field of knowledge. The process of innovation requires an awareness of the Assyrian people of their linguistic and historical heritage or legacy. We all consider ourselves to be part of a nation whose definition is by no means defined or clarified. This is due, on the one hand, to the enormous amount of information about the Assyrian or our ancient and modern history, and on the other hand, the little knowledge we have of our historical and linguistic heritage. This phenomenon of little knowledge of our own is due to the disaster, historical development and circumstances marked, persecutions, genocides, and so on. Without an official geographic reference, the world does not know how to identify and locate the Assyrian people as it deserves. Neither the Assyrian people as a whole are prepared to continually locate their own land, and hence religious identification is more relevant than ethno-nationality. We don't know where our places in reality are, but we know that we are Assyrian Christians of this and that. By not having these aspects and not having a territory officially recognized by the United Nations and other governmental bodies, we are unable to make progress in the historical official recognition of the Assyrian people. This means that our communities around the world are going through a process of disintegration that is implicit at the moment. But if we don't do something about it in less time than we think, it will become explicit. Therefore, the Nineveh Chair's mission is to develop specific projects to reverse this trend. First of all, to seek funds to subsidize research, teaching, and dissemination projects. At this point, let us focus on the process of innovation in the Assyrian language. Before going into the details of this topic, it's worth reflecting on the state of the question of the Assyrian language. Having such a rich and wide-ranging language over time has meant that the Assyrian community has not had a strategy or a national project to cultivate the development of the modern language as all other nations have been doing. You know how many millions state or Spain or any other modern country invests in order to develop, defend their own language? This is what we lack. Lack of economic means and human resources of its own mean that the development of the language was cultivated exclusively in the ecclesiastical sphere, which in turn focused its attention on the ecclesiastical part that was not interested in or aligned with the daily needs of the people. Due to this reality, the development of modern language is practically nil, compared to what other nations are doing. Just look at the production of linguistic means of the modern Assyrian, which compared to other languages could be considered as almost zero. Thanks to the projects developed by the Western universities, it has been possible to recover a small portion of the dialects that are on the verge of extinction due to the immigration of the Assyrian people and the absence of the projects focused on the preservation and evolution of the modern Assyrian language. The Assyrian people have not yet become aware of this danger. The new Assyrian generation is going through a phase that does nothing but gradually move away from its roots for lack of knowledge and daily practice of the language. You have to be conscious of this danger. It goes without saying that it's only through language that one can acquire the binding elements that make the individual feel part of a people, nation, or a society. A large part of Assyrian society has no direct contact with its land or its people, and is thus losing the incentive, the motivation to feel, to understand him, herself as Assyrian. We remember our identity when, I now precise a bit, when there is a special occasion such as Khamisen, Akitu, Khidya, Ba'ot al-Ningwe, Haidara, Baqiyat al-Maran, no, Denha, and so on. All these aspects are necessary but insufficient to constitute a society or a nation in modern terms of the word. During the both mentioned occasions, 95% of Assyrians see each other and communicate in a language that is different from their own. Depending on the country of origin, they speak Arabic, Turkish, Kurdish, Persian, and of course now in diaspora, English, French, German, Italian, and so on. With this way of proceeding, it's impossible to keep a language alive according to what is required to be able to speak of a healthy language in terms of modern linguistics. Neither we nor most of our children feel Assyrian as their main language or as their mother tongue. This is a first sign of a language that I call it a Sikh language. You have to be honest. But in our case, it's not just a Sikh language, it's in a continuous agony process. I'm not becoming so positive, but it's good to tell you that we are in the process. It's not dying, but it's sick. If I add to this the Assyrian tendency to learn other languages as necessity and to express themselves by trying to make themselves as depositors of multilingual gifts, especially when they deal with their neighbors. This is a phenomenon that I have observed for a long period. We try immediately to shift to Kurdish, to Turkish, to Arabic, but we don't make the effort to keep alive our own mind. We are multilingual, it's true. The Assyrians are probably the best example of multilingualism. But at the same time, honestly, we commit also an inconvenience. As I used to say when I see our people in France shifting into Kurdish, immediately said, you are light, because you don't give him or her the chance also to learn your language. Why is the English-speaking, let's say, community or nations they do have more problems to learn a second language because they, in their, subconscious, they know that everybody will speak their language. So it costs them much more effort to learn a language than an Italian or a Portuguese or whatever. We suffered under this process in very ancient time, but we haven't then, moved to the next step that was the opposite of what we should do. This we have also to try to improve, not being only multilingual, but we have to master our own language. The place of learning has until recently been, as I told you, the church, whose members are not prepared to transmit the language as required by the balanced scientific process of learning. Most of our priests are only moderately proficient in Togonoyo or Vision, which represent what we might call the classical part. Knowing how to translate the Sunday liturgical readings or chants, the Aniyata or Madrashe, is not enough. They are not experts in language or language history, linguistic, morphology, etymology, semantics, and a long etc. However, they are the ones who have preserved the language in the community. Without them, what little there was or is would have disappeared a long time ago. That is why I would like to publicly acknowledge the miracle they have performed. The very resident centers do not have sufficient human and mature means to cultivate and transmit the modern Assyrian language as it deserves. On the other hand, the longing to recover the classical language for modern Assyrian society is impossible. Sometimes I have some discussions with some of our scholars. He says, why should we not go back to Togonoyo, to regain our glory? I said, no, what I need is to cultivate a language that people speak. And we have to work on it. That part is now up to the specialists. And now you have to focus how the people feel their language and they focus your efforts on that part. Otherwise, dreaming is nice. Why not recovering the Assyrian mighty period? I know that we are not going to get that, but let's focus on what the people really speak and have a standard language. This is going to be also one of the main activities of Nineveh Chair experts. This is on behalf of, On the other hand, as I told you, worst is now this is, I'm going to say it officially, worst is the shifting from modern Assyrian into Arabic, as has unfortunately been the case of the liturgy of the Chaldean Church the last time. Our worst enemies for keeping the language, in this case, are some of our people, not foreigners, not our neighbors whom we are. We are the enemies of our own legacy. It's deeply sad to see how such a damage is being done by your own people. The hope is the Assyrian community in diaspora. At home and now I see that it's lost. So let's focus on diaspora's possibilities, where we have good experts. We have also ACTA. But I'm sure that if we don't start it in diaspora, it's going to be very difficult to come. And now, as you see, now our own people are now officially imposing that you have to shift from your own language. 2,000 years fighting for preserving it, now you have to shift. We have learned from the mistake of the Lebanese, of the Maronite people. But anyway, this is just my concern.
But the diaspora community has not been focused enough on the necessary development of the Assyrian language. Not even, as far as I know, has the community seriously considered what to do with preserving and developing the Assyrian language, which is a key element in recovering that sense of feeling and understanding oneself as part of a society, of a legacy, in this case, Assyrian. The Assyrians' ability to integrate into different society may lead them to no longer feel the need of cultivating or recover their own legacy in various aspects. It is hyper urgent to invest in the training of new generations, I told you. We have to train for the next 10, 15 years, at least an average of 100 people, female and male. So let's focus on that part. Syrian international community must feel it as an obligation to really, I'm going to finish, to start with specific aspects that are totally needed. If we don't do that, forget it. And my lemma in the last 10 years has been Surayt, Surayt, Surayt. Collectively. We have to work in group. And this is the invitation to the experts that are gathered here, to the people that will support us doing such a work, and I'm sure that we will again regain it. I have been a bit pessimistic. I should be happy and say we will again. No, let's be seriously conscious of this need. We need to work together in order to achieve our dream, improving our language, mastering our history by our own, and providing the international society with an Assyrian vision upon their language, history, and culture. Thank you very much. I know that there would be a discussion, but due to the time and you need also a coffee, we will have the chance. I will answer your questions in this relation. I don't know, just 2 questions and then we will finish because the coffee is waiting for you. Close the microphone, I don't know. So just 2 questions, or in case there are questions. If not, I'm thankful to you. We are going now to have coffee downstairs. ¿Sabes dónde está el café? Está abajo, no? So now, I'm going to announce you different points that are important for the organization. If somebody hasn't done the inscription as it deserves, you will be with Jorge, who is an excellent person, who will, and also other people are trying to help us with that. And Katya, please.
Nina, Nina.